I'd like to start out by talking to you about a true story. I've been in the medical profession for about 30 years, and I'd like to share with you a story that occurred. It's a true story involving a paraplegic in the emergency room. I was working as a tech at the time in the operating room, and we were called to the emergency room to help suture a patient. We were told to bring certain trays and meet the surgeon in the emergency room. And we thought a little odd that we would have to, perform a procedure with suturing and one of our kits up in the emergency room. But when we arrived, it was a paraplegic man. He was wounded in the Vietnam War, and that's why he was paralyzed from the waist down. Very depressed, had a history of depression since his injury, and he was so depressed that he had actually taken a knife and blindly stabbed at himself from below the waist. He was very depressed because he couldn't have sexual relations and that he couldn't walk. And it was just very devastating to me that he would just be so hopeless and helpless that he was willing and trying to injure himself in a way that could have a profound effect on the rest of his life. I've always wondered how his outlook might have changed if he had had 1 ounce of hope. Because at that time, there was no hope of ever reversing or helping anyone who had a spinal cord injury and had totally lost the ability to walk or feel, have any of the normal sensations that many of us take for granted. So that story leads me into the topic which I've extensively researched, and that is the topic of embryonic stem cell research. I'd like to start by just going over with you exactly what a stem cell is. A stem cell is what's considered an undifferentiated cell. The Mayo Clinic refers to this stem cell as the cell's master cell. An analogy to that would be like a baby or infant who, when he starts out, has the ability to grow up to be anything he wants to be. He could be a doctor, a nurse, a plumber. And that's another way that you can look at an undifferentiated stem cell. The stem cell is like a generic cell. And with certain manipulations and with research, we could find out how does that cell then develop and turn out to be specific cells like a muscle cell, a nerve cell, a blood cell. Now these stem cells can be found in 3 different places. One is in the adult bone marrow, another is in umbilical cords, and another is in embryos. We have actually been doing transplants involving stem cells, and that's what we know today as bone marrow transplants. What actually is being transplanted is the adult stem cells. Research of embryonic stem cells offers great hope today. There's many diseases and debilitating illnesses for which there's no known cures. Scientists see great promise in the efforts to improve these therapies for diseases like diabetes, Parkinson's disease, cancer, spinal cord injuries, heart disease. Research could also make it possible to regenerate cells that have died. It may also be possible to test cells for new drug therapies as opposed to testing them on humans. I feel like the possibilities are endless. But therein lies a controversy to this. In order to have embryonic stem stem cells, we have to do what's called an in vitro fertilization. Now that type of fertilization is the same sort of process that you hear for couples that, have trouble conceiving, where a woman's womb or uterus is implanted with an egg that has already been fertilized. Within 3 to 5 days of this fertilization, scientists extract the very inner portion of this embryo. And that's what they use to then create this stem cell chain. For those that are against stem cell research, and especially that of the embryonic stem cell research, they believe that anytime you fertilize an egg, that egg is fundamentally a human being that has rights and needs that have to be protected. For those scientists, researchers, and advocates of embryonic stem cell research, we see this as a few dozen cells that are put together that grow, and they're even too small to be seen by a microscope. Recently, President Obama has signed an executive order for the fair and ethical funding and oversight for embryonic stem cell research. Previously, the federal government was not allowed to fund any of the research projects or even make it legal, really, to do this sort of research in the United States. We all know the tragedy that involved Christopher Reeves, where he was injured in a horseback riding incident, was paralyzed. His only hope for ever walking again, breathing on his own, was embryonic stem cell research. Imagine if that was the only hope you had for a cure and that the President of the United States didn't even support you. Public support is essential to the ethical and the quality of research done in the United States today. Michael J. Fox has been consistent in drumming up public support for Parkinson's disease. Parkinson's disease is another one of those diseases in which they believe research of embryonic stem cells may help to be able to find a cure. There's many other charitable organizations that support embryonic stem cell research. To name a few would be the Alliance of Aging Research, Cancer Research and the Prevention Foundation, Juvenile Diabetes Research Foundation, and the March of Dimes. And these are just a few of the many organizations. We urge everyone to support by donating money to these organizations, or you can support by contacting your local congressman and helping to implement changes that would help to progress the research. Dr. Zerhouni, and he's with the National Institute of Health, he states that good science is good ethics. I believe in that statement, and I hope that through research, one day we can see the end to most human suffering resulting from devastating diseases. Please don't wait until it was one of your family members who is suffering from juvenile diabetes, cancer, who's paralyzed from a car accident. Start advocating and supporting now.